Your argument of Brandon Aiyuk, top 5 receiver in the game, is valid, a valid argument to make. I think he's maybe a fringe top 5, but still, your point makes sense there. So when you're talking about who would you rather trade for, Tee Higgins, what is he? Is he a top 15 receiver in the league? Is he top 20? He's definitely not top 10.
Yeah, Tee Higgins is probably top 20. The injuries scare me with Tee Higgins. Not the fact that he's been like super uber injured, but he has missed time here and there. And if you're going to pay a guy and trade a guy, you'd like this guy to be available to you. I think there is something to the fact that he's never been the primary option, like the Jamar Chase level of like being a weapon. You could make the same argument for Brandon Aiyuk, but I think Brandon Aiyuk has the ability, like he was the 49ers main downfield option. They use Debo in a lot of gadgets. They use McCaffrey in a lot of unique ways as sort of a gadget, but like third down, have to have something. The ball's probably going to Brandon Aiyuk. I don't know if that was ever the case with Tee Higgins in Cincinnati. I wonder how much of his production is due to the fact that Jamar Chase was the guy that commanded the most attention from opposing defenses. I think he's probably a number 2. I think he's an elite number 2 or a number 1 on a bad receiving core. So somewhere around that like top 20 to 30 range. And you could probably argue semantics about Tee Higgins versus 10 to 15 different guys in the league.
Yeah. Right.
But if you're talking about trading and then paying a guy, is that the guy you are super bullish on? For me, not personally. I would love Tee Higgins on the Titans because I think it makes the Titans better, but it might be a situation where 2 or 3 years from now, you're looking at the value you're getting versus what you gave up to get him, and you're not necessarily happy with that move.
All right, so I'm looking at their numbers. Tee Higgins has played 4 less games than Brandon Aiyuk in their 4-year career. So 4 less games. So the injury bug in a lot of those was like this season when Tee Higgins missed the most chunk of time that he has in his career. But 4 less games than Aiyuk. Tee Higgins has 257 receptions through 4 years. Aiyuk has 12 more receptions, less targets. Aiyuk has about 250 more yards over a 4-year span. So very even. And Brandon Aiyuk has 25 touchdowns to Tee Higgins' 24 touchdowns over a 4-year span. So again, these guys are really even when you're just looking at numbers alone. But where I agree with you, Sam, that the Titans, if they're going to target one of these 2 guys, my first target would be Brandon Aiyuk, because Brandon Aiyuk is different from his ability to create separation on his own. He is one of the best, if not the best, route runners in the NFL. He's got speed. He's got short area quickness. He has deep ball catchability. He doesn't score touchdowns at the rate like an A.J. Brown does, but he and Tee Higgins have similar touchdown rate. Tee Higgins, to me, is a redundancy of what DeAndre Hopkins is for the Titans. He's not creating separation like Aiyuk would be. Now, don't get me wrong. I would be 2 thumbs up, 3 thumbs up if I had him, if the Titans traded for either Aiyuk or Tee Higgins. But I would prefer Brandon Aiyuk first overall because of what I've laid out there. Aiyuk and Hopkins feel like a beautiful, beautiful duo for at least 1 year.
Yeah, and Eric says Aiyuk is also cheaper. I mean, Brandon Aiyuk it's a hot button topic for me because there aren't many players that I like more than Brandon Aiyuk, just personally from what I enjoy watching in a football player. He is a guy that I absolutely adore his game. I think, like you said, the ability, short area quickness, create separation, just really precise route running, reliable hands, good length, and to have that package with a guy who is, as far as we know, and like Tee Higgins too, to his credit, very unselfish, very willing as a run blocker, where we've seen this year how good Brandon Aiyuk is, and yet there's never really been like this problem with the fact that they target Debo all the time, or that Brandon Aiyuk hasn't been the primary option, when we know how good he can be, that he is a very good, very willing run blocker while having this package. It's just, he's a complete wide receiver. And it's the ability to have guys like him, and guys like, he's kind of like the wide receiver version of George Kittle in a lot of ways, where he, like, George Kittle is just like, yeah, he's big. He's also fast. He also can run block. He also, like, can just do all the dirty work for you. The 49ers' ability to get different guys like that in their offense is why they are consistently one of the best teams in the sport. So he's a guy that I would love for the Titans to go get. I'm not sure I agree with you, though, that I'd necessarily be 2 thumbs up if the Titans traded for either one of these guys. Aiyuk, yeah, because of how much I like him. I don't know if the Tee Higgins thing would make me happy at this point. And I also don't think it would happen at this point. This was another piece of my article that we kind of previewed a little bit for A to Z Sports, but I don't get the sense that this Tennessee Titans regime is going to be aggressive in this way this offseason. So it would surprise me at this point if the Titans made a move like this. I really just don't foresee it happening. I get the vibe that Chad Brinker, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan are committed to building the Titans with an understanding that that might take some time. Not to say they won't be competitive this year, but I think they're focused on sustainability. They're focused on filling out a team that can support Will Levis for the long haul. And the Titans might be a year away from being in the spot where you're okay giving up a big draft pick to go and get this wide receiver. Knowing what they need on the offensive line and at cornerback and at, receiver, it would surprise me to see them give up a lot of draft capital for a guy that they're also going to have to pay. Like, if you have to give up draft capital and it's, you're moving up to go get an elite wide receiver in the draft, like, not that Tee Higgins or Brandon Aiyuk wouldn't fill a need. It is a need that would help you long term. But you have to factor in the fact that there's a contract attached to this that there isn't with a rookie deal. And so I don't believe this is like something that they're going to entertain this offseason.